How's it going, everybody? I'm Brandon with Electrical Specialist, and on today's episode of Ask Your Local Electrician, we're going to be continuing the series of electrical maintenance in your home. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about panels and grounding. So, obviously, the panel is the biggest part of your electrical system in your house. This seems to be a tough one for people. I don't know if it's because it's kind of a scary thing, it's tucked in a corner of the basement, or it's in the garage. It always brings back to mind that scene from Home Alone where he's got the furnace in the basement that, scares him a lot. It's kind of like that. Is it something, it's kind of a nuance that we don't really want to get into, but it is the heart of your electrical system. So we talked about other systems in your home, like the AC system, your HVAC, and we know the importance of it. But we know that the electrical system in your house also has those components. It's got very sensitive parts. Electricity is coming and going all the time. It's actually called hertz. So you've actually got your lights and your TV and your microwave and you're charging your car, your furnace, your AC. All these things that make us comfortable are regulated by your electrical panel. Your breakers, they stop fires, they stop explosions, they keep us safe. Have you ever got up close to your electrical panel? I'm not sure if you like as much as I do, but you can actually hear that warm humming. It's actually breathing, it's expanding, it's contracting, it's moving, it's alive. And that needs maintenance when things move. You can imagine when you turn the oven on, right? Your range, and you're asking for power, you're demanding power from your electrical system, and it heats up these wires and it sends electricity and electrons flow. They cause heat, they build up, it actually moves back and forth the whole time. It's constantly adjusting, it's getting hot and cold. Those wires get really hot, That's what makes breakers trip, is the heat if they get too hot and knows it should be a certain temperature. So when you shut the stove off, now it cools down. So you've got an expansion and a contraction. Those wires are actually getting a little bit larger and a little bit smaller. Now, as you can imagine, they're landed on something close to this. They've got screws. Now we torque these things, we tighten them down. That wire in there gets bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller. And as you can imagine, these come loose sometimes under the connection, because when you turn this and stop, well, that wire is getting larger and smaller. You can imagine that it would come loose. Did you know there's actually a torque setting set forth by the code saying how hard you should tighten these things, how tight they should be? That's also something on our evaluation. When we come through and we do a torque setting, a calculation on there, make sure that everything's torque to code. Not torque to code, torque to code, get it right. But anyway, they do come loose over time from getting bigger and smaller. That's something that we want to make sure is tightened. One of the first things we do when we do a panel rejuvenation, or when we try to get it back to, working correctly, we open it up, we start pulling on all the wires very slightly, just to make sure that they don't pop out. And believe it or not, our expectation is some are just going to come out. So that means you had a bad connection just sitting there arcing, that we just pulled out because it was loose, because of years of just sitting in there and getting bigger and smaller and kind of backing out that screw. So these things do take maintenance. The panel is also your source of grounding. So that's typically, where the grounding from the gas and the water meet, where we have bonding. We want to make sure that the grounding is done properly. I think it's overlooked because people don't understand. It's kind of a mythical thing. It's a theory. Grounding is what makes your breakers trip. It's what keeps you safe. So grounding is a very important thing. The panel can be there all day and do its thing, but without proper grounding, that breaker will not shut off when something happens. So you have to make sure you're grounding as well. It also makes sure that surge protection, which most of us have now to keep our appliances safe, your surge protection will not work without proper grounding. So we want to make sure our grounding is good. The easiest way to do that is to go to your water main. Not everybody knows where their water main is in your house, but oh wait, It's a good thing to find just in case there's any kind of flood or you have to shut it off for any reason. Go find your water main. Within 5 foot of that shutoff valve, there should be a bare copper conductor that goes to your panel. Now, if there's not, don't be that surprised. Back a while ago, before the code changed, they would just jump out of the panel and hit a copper water line back when they were copper. Now, as you can imagine, everybody's house had copper water lines then. Do we have copper water lines now when you build a new house? Absolutely not. What do we have? Has anyone seen the different multicolored PEX, the plastic piping? That's what almost all your plumbers are going to use, and unless you specifically request brazed copper piping. So it's a lot cheaper, it's a lot quicker. That's what they're going to install. So as you can imagine, when you call a plumber in and you have a leak and you ask them to fix a leaky pipe that you had, say, in the basement connecting your toilet or a sink, and the first thing he's going to do is cut a chunk of that copper out and put a piece of plastic in. I believe it's made of PVC. So that good connection you had from that water line above your panel that went out underground 10 foot deep and is the best connection you can have to ground is now worthless. It's now cut. It doesn't go anywhere. It leaves the panel and goes to that piece of plastic and stops. That's why it needs to go from your panel all the way to your water main. So no matter how many times pieces get cut out, it always goes back at least 10 feet underground. That's the best way. So don't forget that the panel is the lifeblood of your system. It needs maintenance. It will extend the life of it as well. You might get 10 to 20 more years out of that panel if you do good maintenance to it. Thank you for watching today, everybody. If you need any more questions answered, don't forget to look at our Facebook, our YouTube, go to our website at especialist.pro. You'll get all the answers there.